Horus Heresy. It was
A terrible time.
heresy. Heresy.
Heresy!
Heresy. It's time to get fucking wasted.
Ooh. All right. Hello and welcome to Hammering the Point, a Warhammer 40K podcast. I am your host, Warboss Toon Smasher, here with my co-hosts.
Electro Priest Jack.
The Commissar.
In today's episode, we're going to be finishing off the timeline by talking about the Horus Heresy, and then basically just finishing up the timeline because everything else is just kind of like tiny crusades going into the humanity spiraling down into what we know of today in the 41st millennium.
Which is ever changing, and you guys have to keep up with that on your own.
No.
I'm kidding. You can come back to that too. We love you.
That's why we make these future episodes.
Sure. So the Horus Heresy was quite an important event.
One of the most important ones that honestly comes up more than even the Age of Strife.
Right, because they actually had like a tabletop game based upon the 31st millennium, or is it just the 30th?
That came out
millennium?
after 40K.
Did it come out after? So that's how much people like the Horus Heresy. Is they made the 30K tabletop game for a bit there.
Well, it's still ongoing.
Is it really?
Oh, yeah.
Why didn't we get into that? That sounds way cooler.
Because you had to go to Forge World for a lot of their minis. And
That's
we don't
definitely
have
better.
that kind of money.
Oh,
They're actually going to plastic now.
Oh, they've already been plastic. They're
Well,
just
they
not
have, but I
as
mean, like,
nifty
they're...
resin
yeah.
as Forge World does. But
But yeah, it's known as the Age of Darkness. The Horus Heresy.
what do you mean by that?
I mean that the
Is there
Horus...
something wrong with dark people?
Oh, wow. I didn't realize we were...
Being racist against the salamanders now, are we?
But anyways, the Horus Heresy was one of the most traumatizing events for the galaxy because it basically tore apart one of the greatest expanding empires, and it brought a lot of things to its knees. And in this episode, we're going to be covering pretty much, or at least trying our best without rambling too hard, about various items.
Yeah, important events that happened along the Horus Heresy, because as we iterated in the last video, the Horus Heresy is very long, so we're just going to give you some key points.
We can always cover the Horus Heresy as like an actual episode later on.
We
too.
should do it next. Just an idea.
And that's the podcast.
That'd be great.
Goodbye.
Right, I know we're looking there. I don't really... All I remember is that Logar kicked it off. The Word Bearers.
Yes and no. So basically, it started out with the Emperor giving his trusted son the...
Trusted son being Horus in this.
Yes. The title War Master to continue the crusade without the Emperor, because the Emperor was working on a project for the Imperium. So he basically was just like, not Emperor. The Emperor said, Horus, I trust you enough to continue this crusade without me. And it kind of kicked off the whole thing where they started doing what they normally did. They were taking cities and planets either peacefully or aggressively.
For the Imperium.
Yeah, because they were just trying to continue on bringing mankind together throughout the galaxy.
Yeah, pretty much they were going to planet to see if they can find the lost remnants of humanity. And they had two ways of dealing with it. It was either a peaceful solution where they welcomed them into the Imperium, or it was an aggressive solution where they would call the armies and the Astartes onto the planet to take care of it and bring them to heal.
Submission is what they like to call it. They said bringing planets into submission.
Yep. And then
A lot of different legions would kind of take planets over, and then other ones were kind of fighting some battles too.
Well, yeah.
While a lot of this was starting out.
Pretty much like once Horus became War Master, he kind of just sent his brothers off to various sections of the blooming Imperium to either retake or take or just kind of spread the influence of the Imperium of mankind. then what really started the downfall of it was a specific campaign where
Fulgrim took a demon blade and was slowly kind of getting corrupted.
that was a
with
little
his-
later.
It was a little bit later, but also I can't.
It
'Cause I
ultimately,
know the planet Nerf is where like
yeah.
Horus was actually.
Well, yeah, they brought this one
Turn
planet to heal via war because they were really aggressive and they had their own version of the Emperor of Mankind. And Horus sent down his most trusted son, which is Janus, to take out, or at least to talk to the guy who called himself this pseudo-emperor. And they, instead of hearing him out, they killed him and displayed his body to the Imperium, and that kind of kicked off this big war. And they ultimately ended up bringing the world into compliance, and they're like, sweet, we're done. And they kind of just went off and did their own thing for a bit, and they ran into multiple different other factions, and they ran into this specific faction that was technologically advanced, and they were actually friends with aliens. And they started warning these people about, or at least they started warning.
Is that the Interex?
Yeah, the Interex. They found them, and they were talking to them, basically, and they were warning them about the warp. There was a specific character named Erebus who was with them at the time, and as all the Space Marines were distracted with this diplomatic dinner, he snuck away and stole a Chaos Blade that had a living demon in it.
Surprise!
And that's what kind of kicked off the Horus Heresy, because he stole it, and then he managed to get off planet and then go back to one of the moons of the false emperor's planet to kick it off. And that's how Horus ultimately gets corrupted, because they get into a fight with the dude, and the guy cuts Horus with the blade, and it kind of puts him in a coma because it is like a super disease from Nurgle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and that's what kind of kicks off the...
Yeah, because they wanted, because that they there was a cult that was on that planet. It was a chaos cult. They went to a place called the Serpent Lodge for this quote unquote spiritual healing to do on to Horus, because Horus's army was like they were getting the feeling of, we don't want to do this, but because he was wounded with that blade, and there were no nearby planets where he can go get healed, they were like, well, fuck it, let's see what happens. And during there, Erebus had unveiled that he fell to chaos, and then that's when the chaos kind of showed Horus this future of the Emperor where he was just using everybody and kind of taking over the galaxy.
They actually showed him the future of Horus's failure. That's what they showed him.
Yeah, that's just what
Logar
they were
knew
portraying.
about the lodges and the chaos corruption, so he was the one who suggested that to Horus's trusted sons, which was Abaddon, Loken. I don't remember.
A few others. There's a lot.
There's one, but there's another one called Little Horus. I just don't remember. Axeman. Yeah, that's his name.
Yeah.
Which was a group of trusted Space Marines called the Mournerville, which was all about the moon. And I can't remember her name. Erebus managed to convince the Mournerville to take him to this lodge because it was the only way to heal him. And as he was getting...
And was it the only way to heal him, or was that just what they said?
Pretty much.
Okay,
that
but that was
what
the
they
plan
wanted
the
to,
whole time. Yeah.
Basically, they
I just
wanted to
wanted know
wound
if there
him.
was any other out, or he was just doomed from the start.
This wasn't...
No, he was doomed from the start, because this is what they were
Good.
planning on, how to change Horus over. Because
Yeah, of course.
while Horus was being attacked by Chaos, so during this time, using psychic energy for the armies is kind of illegalized.
Right, from the last
back
episode.
in back in 0131, the Emperor had showed up again only one time to go to court with. It was the Council of the Nicaea for the use of psychic powers and all
That's
the
right.
legions. Because Magnus the Red of the Thousand Sons, Sanguinius of the Blood Angels, and Jakate Khan of the White Scars, they all wanted to keep the use of psychic powers inside of the legions, so because of course that's some of what they really helped major in, especially
Of course.
Magnus.
Yeah, a lot of them were
But
very warp sensitive.
so it got illegalized because the Emperor, Leman Russ, and Mortarion kind of banned it.
Right. And especially, it wasn't the secret reason for the Emperor's project.
I think so.
Yeah, the secret reason that nobody was allowed to use psychic abilities is because of the Emperor's secret project in the Webway, which we covered a little bit. So yeah, it was a big deal. It was a big deal not to use psychers, and that was a big point in the in Civil War.
Yep. And at this point, the Emperor hadn't told anybody either.
No,
So they were
it was
just
a
kind
big
of like,
secret.
Well, fuck, I guess, because jumping back into just a minute ago when Horus was being attacked by Chaos, Magnus illegally used his psychic powers to try and help Horus, to kind of show him, like, hey, there's something going on here that is wrong.
Yeah.
Fight it. Fight this. But, of course, ultimately lost. And then after that, Magnus had tried to warn the Emperor.
Yeah, that was
And
a
when he
bad
did that,
idea.
It was, because he was literally on the complete opposite side of the galaxy than being on Terra. Because so the Thousand Suns home planet is Prosperos. Thank you, Thank you, Commissar. So the home planet of Prosperos is the Thousand Suns, and that's kind of where Magnus was at. So he used his psychic powers to portray himself going through to the Emperor to try and warn him. And he failed. And when he did fail, it busted through kind of the psychic wall that the Emperor had protecting the galaxy where Terra was.
His project.
Exactly.
Sorry,
And
his project.
the project was almost terminated. But when... it was terminated.
And it was actually kind of a success because he did manage to warn him. It's just the Emperor wasn't listening because he was so mad that...
Magnus used
Magnus
his psychic
shattered
powers.
His webway.
his protection, and then caused the webway to fail, and then endless swarms of demons started pouring through because that's what the Chaos wanted.
Yep.
Chaos pretty much actively was behind every single poor decision of all the Primarchs and everybody else, and it ultimately caused the downfall of a lot.
Yeah, basically half of the Imperium.
At least half of the
Crusaded areas.
and also half the legions of the Astartes, because like pretty much most of them fell to Chaos.
Because it was 9 legions that ended up falling.
Yeah, and there was originally 20, except for 2, because 2 of them were exterminated.
Yeah, so that's half of them right there. And then we had how many loyal Primarchs die officially? 2? I think there's 2 confirmed and 2 to 3 missing.
1 technically during the
Oh, wow.
during
Only
the Horus Heresy, then after they started falling off.
well, fair enough. Okay, I'm getting ahead of
Because
myself.
during the Horus Heresy, it was
It was-
Sanguinius, wasn't it?
Anyways, we're getting ahead of
Yeah, then there's
ourselves.
2 of them, because that was towards the end. Because Ferris Manus is the one who dies.
Ah, that's
During
right.
the
Because Ferris Manus is... Because Ferris Manus is the one that fell to his own army, wasn't it?
No, he got his head chopped off by Filgrim.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
Just
guys,
during
tell
the
me what happened next.
Well, during the fall as well, when Horus was corrupted, a lot of the other armies and Primarchs were out and about, still crusading, fighting planets, trying to unite mankind still, and then a few of them were going to wars. I know that Jacate... I don't actually know. I don't think Jacate Khan was actually at that war.
He was at
But the White Scars were out at the... I don't remember the edge of the universe, but I do know that the White Scars were fighting the... correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was the Condats Orcs army.
Oh.
Yeah,
Out
I think
in the-
so. They were out in the boonies
Yeah.
taking care of a lot of things. But that's basically like what they did is they... as soon as Horus fell and became fully corrupted, he basically started contacting his brothers and, in a sense, just like trying to make secret allegiance and going, hey, I'm planning on taking over where the Emperor left off, in a sense. And then he gathered Mortarion, Logar, not Ferrus Manus, Perturabo, Angron, and the Night Haunter, and they all just kind of gathered together to talk variously amongst each other to kind of set out a plan to not only wipe the loyalist section out of their armies, but also to just kind of make a fortified unit to try to either convert or take out his other brothers. And there was like various plans that they did to do this, like sending them on various goose chases, or sending specifically the Blood Angels to a demon world to get corrupted by Khorne.
Because when they don't know that you're already corrupted and you head all of the armies, you get to do whatever you want with all those Primarchs.
Yep, and ultimately...
And it's all because the Emperor wouldn't listen.
Well, yeah. And
Well,
he also...
was too busy trying to entertain his own warp project.
Well, yeah, he was just trying to make a safer way to travel across
of course,
skies.
it was the best intentions are paved
well, yeah.
with, good intentions pave the road to hell. That's what it is.
Yeah. And ultimately, Horus managed to sway Magnus to his side after telling...
Well, the reason he got Magnus over was because after Magnus had broke the psychic treaty, the Emperor had sent Leman Russ and I can't remember the other one off the top of my head. Was it just Leman Russ and the Space Wolves?
That's what his job was. He was the Emperor's executioner, and he was sent to take care of Magnus, and
because they were originally sent to basically just chain them up and bring them to the
arrest
Emperor,
them.
Because he wanted to be like, what the fuck? So
he wanted to punish his children.
But Horus, since he was headmaster, had gotten a hold of that order and switched it over, and instead of capturing them, it was to kill Magnus and the Thousand Sons. So when Leman Russ and the Space Wolves got to Prospero, they just annihilated everything, and that's when Leman Russ broke Magnus's spine.
Yeah,
and Magnus
as one
was
would.
able to project himself away off the planet just in time after that,
Interesting. Okay.
losing most of his army.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
that's how it happened. And during that whole conflict between the Space Wolves and the Thousand Sons, a titular character that will show up later in the series, his name is Erebus. He was the first librarian of the Thousand Sons, and no, it wasn't Erebus. It was Amon.
It was
He was someone. We'll figure.
He was Magnus's right hand man.
Yeah, we just can't think of his name right now off the top of our head.
That'd make it funny.
Fair enough. So what happens after the who gets cut down?
Okay, so after Horus gets corrupted and he gets all of his other Chaos corrupted brothers together, they start a thing called the Istvan 5 atrocities.
Beautiful.
It's either 3 or 5. It's one of those because there's 2.
I think it's the 5
atrocities, where basically all of the traitor legions show up at one world together.
Yes.
Yeah, because they lured the Salamanders and the Raven Guard.
Different one.
Different one?
This is the one where they're culling their own people.
Yeah, and that's what I'm asking about.
Okay.
So this, I think it's the Istvan 5. Then they basically gathered all of their own people, and they sent strictly the loyalist side of their armies down to this planet to bring it to heel, because it was supposedly fell to chaos.
But instead, they found...
Oh, no. As soon as they started the war, they decided to try to virus bomb everybody.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's what killed all the loyalists.
Actually, surprisingly, some of them, not all of them.
Oh, good.
This one Emperor's Children captain managed to get down onto the planet and warn the loyalists what was happening.
Oh, okay.
And then they managed to escape into bunkers.
And then they came to help later. I'm guessing they didn't get to warn the Emperor.
They fought a war for a few months straight.
Wow. Good
It
for
was
them.
loyalists versus traitors, and it pissed Horus off to the point where he was just like, this is taking too long, because
Of course.
Yep.
Angron got super pissed that there were still loyalists there, and they
Right.
decided to start dropping down ships, and it kind of forced the traders to do the same thing because they're not going to leave Angron to clear that up.
Yeah.
Because it was loyalists from the Sons of Horus, the Emperor's Children, Mortarion's Legion, which
Right.
is Death Guard. There's
They had a little bit of Iron
World.
Fist with them, didn't they?
it was World Eaters, and it was pretty much all the Trader Legions.
Yeah,
showed
there's
up
one more. That's always 5.
Yeah, so they all gone into this big war that was called the Istvan 5 Atrocity, and it took them a few weeks and months, and they held out for super long, to the point where Horus just said no more, and he nuked the planet from orbit. He just like blew it up. He just started dropping.
Exterminatus.
Pretty much, they already exterminatus the planet with the virus bombs.
No, I know.
And then they just said enough is enough, and he just nuked the planet, hoping that killed everybody. Which it pretty much killed everybody, but like 2 people.
As nukes do.
And then after that, they're all like, sweet, we're pretty much no longer needing this and everything. While that whole war was happening, one of the flagships of Mortarion's Legion, which is the Death Guard, one of their flagships ended up actually getting taken over by a cell of loyalists who escaped and fled to Terra to warn the Emperor about all this.
Interesting.
And that was Nathaniel Garrow who led that whole group.
That's right. Okay.
And that's when they first ran into Nurgle demons, in a sense, during that whole storyline. And basically, they managed to escape. And during the ensuing conflict within one of the whole bridges that happened, it wasn't a bridge, it was one of their docking ports. It came to head where the Loyalist Space Marines were fighting against the Chaos, or at least the Traitor Legion. And during the whole scuffle, a virus bomb in one of their things exploded, and the Loyalists managed to get out, and it killed pretty much all of everybody on that docking port. And so when they popped into the warp to get away, their Geller field slightly failed, if I remember correctly, and all the bodies of the desecrated Space Marines came back to life as Chaos spawns and Chaos Space Marines, and they had to fight that whole dealio. And they made it to Terra to warn him, and they ultimately got locked up in the prison on the moon for questioning, basically, because nobody wanted to believe the fact that Horus and everybody else was turning traitor against the Emperor.
Which is fair. I don't think that would be a very happy thing to report.
Pretty much. And that's what kind of like warned the greater society of the whole Horus Heresy. Then there was the Istvan 3 drop site massacre, which pretty much they tricked 3 legions into helping a traitor legion, a couple traitor legions, by making them drop down to the planet. And as they were moving in juncture with the Loyalists, they turned on their Loyalist companions and basically slaughtered almost all of them. And that's where Ferrus Manus and Vulcan were supposedly lost, because the Night Haunter ended up kidnapping Vulcan, but Fulgrim and Ferrus Manus got into a fight to the death, and Ferrus Manus ultimately ended up dying to the hands of his brother Fulgrim by getting his head chopped off. So.
Wow. Whoa.
Because that was all right before more of the Salamanders and the Raven Guard had actually gotten lured to the planet, right? Because the Iron Fists were stationed on Terra to kind of help them out, and as they were flying in during this time, the Fabricator General had admitted he was starting to follow Horus. So as Mars was falling, the Iron Fists were kind of negated and split off, so that way they could save a lot of war history and different, basically just weapons of war on Mars from being fully lost to the Fabricator General. So they were kind of helping out the loyalists there. And then the other half of the Iron Fist were trying to make their way up to where the Salamanders and Raven Guard were.
And they
I
got
don't know
killed
that
too.
battle. They did, because when they landed on the planet, more of the traitor legions had dropped in and then admitted to them, "Hey, we're traitors."
So join us
They
or
just
die.
got massacred.
Yeah, it was a good
Most
time.
of the Salamander Legion and Raven Guard had stationed on that planet to help out, and they lost about 80% over that. The Iron Fists were able to come in and kind of help save the day a little bit towards the end, but once they had hopped in, most of the planet had already fallen to the traitors.
Good. Good. That's exactly how we wanted it. Thanks, Horus.
Because during all that, too, more and more Titan legions were coming across the galaxy, following under the Fabricator General's orders as well. So there were traitor and loyalist Titan legions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It was.
I just don't remember any off the top of my name, boss.
It was a complete divide down the middle across all of humanity, not just what was in the Imperium.
Pretty much. Then ultimately, it all came to head on Terra, because that's when the Chaos Legions and the Traitor Legions managed to actually get there before most of the other legions. And then they kind of started a big siege of the Terra. The Loyalists had Sanguinius and...
Ultramar?
Yes.
Yeah. Was it not Ultramar of the Ultramarines?
No, I think it was Sanguinius and Dorn. And,
Oh, that would be better. I like
Sanguinius-
Dorn.
Sanguinius, Dorn, and...
Oh, and we know. Yeah, no. Somebody comes in later. That's what you're thinking of. It's our boy Lee-Man Russ.
Is it Russ?
Russ comes in and saves him at the end, I believe. Right, Commissar?
I think so.
Yeah.
So I thought, when does Russ jump into the warp?
So it's a whole different thing. It's really something we should do in a whole episode 'cause it's a very fun little storyline. But yeah, he has his
we
own
will.
battle going on, I believe, with Chaos.
He actually has his own book where it's him trying to assassinate Horus.
Yeah, that's right. That was his mission, and it went pretty awry. But him ending up in the warp with his buddies ended up him warping halfway across the galaxy right to Terra.
Okay, so the people who defended Terra while the other ones were trying to get back to them were Rogodorn, Jakakau, Khan, and Sanguinius. Those are the three legions that held the planet while waiting for the other ones. And the attackers were Filgrim, Perturabo, Mortarion, Angron, Magnus the Red, Kabanda, Abaddon, and Horus.
That's terrifying. No wonder they got so far.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So basically, they sieged Earth all the way down to the Golden Throne. And then what happened?
So basically, they managed to get to the planet, and the only ones that really had like a plan, so to speak, of attacking was Perturabo. He was
That's
since
funny.
he was the master of siege warfare.
Right.
He was trying to direct everything, but
Dealing with Chaos Demons doesn't tend to really go well.
Well, yeah, but especially the fact that Angron and Filgrim both were on the same planet. One is too angry to do anything because he became a chaos demon.
Yeah, that's right.
A chaos prince.
Angron.
And he just kind of kept throwing
Wolf
himself at the walls, whether Perturabo liked it or not. And Filgrim's people decided to ignore the vast majority of the wall and go and attack the people themselves. So he was the only one who was like ultimately trying to keep the attack going on to the walls while a lot of his legions were just doing whatever the hell they wanted to, in a sense, because Horus hit up into his battleship and he didn't actually go down on the planet because he was trying to break the palace and tempt the emperor out of his
He was
golden
trying to
palace.
psychically solve the problem.
Yeah. and that was pretty much it. And that's where,
Well, he did end up luring the Emperor out.
well, yeah, after there was a Geller shield issues that his flagship happened, and that's what allowed them to teleport onto Horus's ship to end the fight. But as the Siege of Terror was going, they sent a specific demon out that has history with Sanguinius, because Sanguinius was sent to a demon world to try to chaos corrupt him. And that's where the Red Thirst and the Black Rage really came about, was on that planet, because it was a corn planet.
That was just the Red War, right?
Yeah, something like that. I don't quite remember. But it was a skirmish between the Blood Angels and corn demons. And there was a specific bloodthirster named Kabanda who wanted to corrupt the angel Sanguinius. And they fought. And it was one of the most devastating fights of the Horus Heresy, because it just shows how truly powerful a Primarch is, because it can go toe-to-toe with the Demon Prince and somehow win. He ends up actually defeating Kabanda and getting his entire legion out, and then they manage to get to Terra, where Sanguinius and his legion are holding a specific gate from Chaos.
Yeah.
And they resummon Kabanda again, where they get into another big fight. It's an aerial battle this time, and ultimately Sanguinius wins again by picking Kabanda up and shattering his spine in front of his entire legion and throwing Kabanda back at Chaos, which scared them so bad they ran away from that gate for just long enough where they can recuperate and get back to the Emperor and go up to the Horus's flagship to end the fight ultimately. And
Because that's where Sanguinius fell,
yes,
protecting the Emperor.
Sanguinius was the first one to find his brother Horus, and Horus and Sanguinius were two of the closest of the Primarchs ultimately, and he was the reason why the Emperor had a chance to defeat Horus, because he put a chink in Horus's armor.
I'd completely forgotten about that.
Yep. Because after Sanguinius had fell and the Emperor started fighting Horus, the Emperor was holding back because he was still really hoping on to just a slight chance.
Clone or not, that's his son.
Oh, they're all his sons, so he doesn't want to kill his sons. So he's holding back in the chance that Horus could actually be redeemed. But when Horus dealt a fatal blow on the Emperor, he said, fuck this, actually amassed all his power, and then used that chink in the armor to his advantage to completely not just kill, but just fucking eviscerated Horus's existence, like physically, spiritually, everything about that man, down to the atoms, was fucking gone.
Yeah, and as Horus punted the Emperor onto the ground, legends say that there was a single guardsman who stood up to Horus to protect the Emperor and gave the Emperor a chance to gather that power and ultimately destroy Horus. Off the top of my head, I cannot think of the dude's name. It starts with an O, I know that, but off the top of my head, I can't quite remember his name.
No worries. It's
Isn't
just
that the
one
that
lowly
ends up
guardsman.
becoming Captain General.
No, because he dies. Because Horus just absolutely destroys him. Because he's a normal human versus a for chaos god empowered.
Oh, that's right.
Anyways,
I was thinking of the Custodes for some reason.
they picked up the shattered remains of the Emperor, and
Yep, the other Primarchs who jumped onto the flagship of Horus managed to finally come across the Emperor's body and Horus's body and Sanguinius's body. So the Traitor Legions ended up getting broken at that point. They were pushed back because not only did the Dark Angels, the Space Wolves, and Ultramarines showed up in system, which tripled the size of the
defensive force.
the defensive force.
The Iron Fists were there too, weren't they?
Yeah. Well, the remnants of them,
Yeah.
because they were one of the legions that got absolutely destroyed. And the reason why the Ultramarines took so long to get there is because they were dealing with the Word Bearers, because the Word Bearers did a surprised attack on the core worlds of the Ultramarines as vengeance. So that's why the Ultramarines were not there. They were fighting their own battle.
Because the lore bearers are just sneaky little bastards. But yeah, they drag the Emperor down to the Golden Throne, and they
Because
throw
no one
him.
knew he was a perpetual.
Yeah, so they throw him on the Golden Throne and started feeding him souls to try and keep his soul alive.
It was the only way to keep the what do you call it? The warp rift from ripping open Terra and destroying it.
Oh,
is
wow.
Having a powerful enough Psyker to sit on the Golden Throne. So that's why they interred him into it, because he was the only one strong enough to do that.
So that's also where the beam for the Astronomicon is too, isn't it?
Yep, he is a chunk of his soul is the Astronomicon.
Yeah. Because that's what's kind of the home beacon for Terra.
Pretty much, that's what kind of guides everybody in the warp. Is this beacon of soul energy, basically.
Yeah, I'm sure the Tyranids love that. Probably looks like such a good snack.
The Tyranids
The
can't
Astronomicon.
actually see in the warp.
Oh, cool.
Because
Okay.
They are negative presence in the warp.
Right. I thought they would just see that, but no. What
The
was
hive mind could see it though, couldn't
Not
it?
really.
Like the
They just blank it out. Like, that's the thing. They don't travel into the warp. They just float along, and hoping they would find civilization. But this isn't part of the episode, so.
Yeah.
fair enough. Strike that out for a second. Got off topic. Maybe it's all Warhammer. It's all topic.
But
The
anyway,
War Boss likes talking the good stuff.
you're dang right. That's pretty much
It's hard
it, though.
keeping the Umi voice sometimes. Oh, calm down.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, I
Kinda
think
got
that's
lost.
pretty much it. So the Emperor gets entombed on the throne to keep everything safe, and the freaking chaos all gets disbanded and completely disarrayed because there's no one to guide them anymore, with half the Primarchs being absolutely crazy or dead at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Ultimately, after the Siege of Terra and the Imperium managed to beat back the Chaos, the Imperium was shattered, and pretty much the remainder of the loyalist Primarchs had to pick up the pieces. And that's when Guilliman showed up and introduced a thing called the Codex Astartes, which was a fail-safe to ultimately break up all the legions, so no one person can control the power of the Astartes.
Because they didn't want the Horus Heresy to happen.
Pretty
again.
much. They were like, we can't do this again.
This is too many men lost. Too many. Since kind of like what you said, Commissar, with gaining all that power over that many armies, it's too much of a risk to have that many men going to war again. I know a few of the Primarchs didn't want to go into the Astartes under the fact of, well, if this happens again, we want to make sure that we have plenty of men to fight all these hordes that's going to be coming our way. I know the ones that didn't go for it, but ultimately still did, was Leman Russ, Rogel Dorn.
Rogel Dorn was the one who had most of the problem with it.
That's
He
fair.
didn't want to break up his legion.
For that simple fact, because he wanted to make sure that everywhere had good defenses.
Pretty much. And later down the road, he ends
Vulcan
up-
was one that didn't want it either.
Yeah.
Corvus Corax didn't either.
Yeah, a
Or
lot
did-
of them.
no.
A lot of them didn't care. Well, they did and they didn't. But the one of the most vocal ones in the group was Dorn, which actually almost caused a completely new civil war between Dorn and Reboot Guilliman.
Wow.
But ultimately, what changed Rogel Dorn's mind is he got taunted by Perturabo to come to a specific planet, and that was the Iron Cage Massacre, if I remember correctly. And Perturabo baited Rogel Dorn into another fight where the Imperial Fists were no longer defending and they were attacking, and they were not that good at attacking. They're a defense force.
They were
And-
like, you want to penetrate a fortress? Here's one to do it.
And they
Not him.
basically
Ha!
fell onto this planet, to fight and bring Perturabo to heal, but it was a trap, and it pretty much decimated the Imperial Fists to the point where Rogal Dorn admitted that he needed to do that, and he broke his legion up to his most trusted companions, and he gave his most trusted captain, Sigismund, the title of the Black Templar and the Emperor's
sons,
champions.
wasn't
Yeah, Sigismund, one of his captains, which was he ultimately became the first chapter master of the Black Templar, and he said he will continue the Great Crusade until all chaos is exterminated. So
What a guy.
yeah,
Yeah, because the Black Templars, the more they sanctioned out, the more they didn't follow.
yeah,
the,
pretty much. They were
Adeptus
completely against
Astartes.
the Codex Astartes. So we don't quite know how many numbers there are of Imperial Black Templar, because they're a fleet-based chapter. They don't have a home world like a lot of the other ones do.
So they're just constantly out on that crusade.
Pretty much, like,
just
there's-
picking up anybody that wants to come up. point a gun
well,
and shoot
they
it.
show up to random planets at, especially planets they fought for, and non-corrupted children will be taken for them to become novitiates.
All unattended children will be eaten.
Kidnapped.
Will be eaten.
So yeah,
'Cause ain't the Blood Angels
and that's pretty much what happened.
cannibals?
A lot of the legions were broken, and they didn't have enough to basically have a standing army again. So a lot of them did end up breaking up and forming various.
Fleets going out like their own little legions within the fleets.
Yeah, chapters
Yeah,
is
chapters.
what they became. And that was pretty much towards the end of it. And
Because even with the Codex Astartes, everything kind of boiled down to chapters too.
yep, it was Robert Gilman who pushed for it, because he believed that nobody should have that much power, and the Legion should be kind of, in a sense, nerfed.
Because they wanted it taken down to just 1,000 men.
Yep. Each chapter would be 1,000 Space Marines.
That'd be a lot of chapters.
And there was.
There's
The
quite a bit of
one
chapters
that
now.
came out with the most chapters was the Ultra Marines, because they had the purest and the largest army out of all of them.
Well, that's very, very interesting. I'm glad that that was the end of it, because I don't think humanity could have taken much more.
No, because during all this time as well, more and more armies were becoming known to the Imperium. The Tau kind of started showing up towards the end of all this. No?
No,
What?
that's way later.
Yeah, they
They
literally
found
didn't.
the Tau
well-
during the Horus Heresy, and the Ultramarines were going to absolutely just virus bomb the planet.
Yeah.
A warp storm popped up and stopped them from doing it,
Yeah.
and it cut that entire thing off. So they didn't show up until way later.
Okay, that's where I got that mixed up. Cool. Thank you, Commissar. I knew they were in there somewhere. I just couldn't exactly remember.
Well, this has been hammering the point with Commissar
Jack, we
Jack.
still need to keep going. There's more to it.
Damn it!
Do you need to take a quick break?
No, we're fine. Just what is left?
Well, that was the Horus. That was basically the Horus Heresy.
But what's
leading
left in
off
the
into
timeline?
Well, after the Horus Heresy, when humanity was kind of starting to rebuild itself, that's when more and more races were starting to get
I
introduced.
suppose I don't fucking know much about that at all.
Most of the races have already been introduced. It's just the only two that haven't was
The Tyranids.
Tyranid and the Tau, and the Tau
Yeah.
doesn't show up until way later.
And why
Because
did the
that's-
Tyranids show up? What was their beacon again?
Okay, so
We talked about this last time.
yeah, the Alpharius Legion, the Alpha Legion, took a planet with a psychic beacon on it, and the Imperial Fists were there actually, and this is actually a fight between Dorn and Alpharius, where Dorn pretty much kills Alpharius, and instead of allowing the Chaos Legions to have it, they blow up the psychic beacon, which sent out this pulse to
Everything. Everywhere.
everything, and it called the Tyranids in a specific.
The Leviathan fleet,
Yeah.
specifically.
Yes, the Leviathan.
Because they
fleet.
think there might be different tendrils of...
Yeah.
But we don't know yet.
They all spread it off from that one first initial fleet. There was a Imperial Inquisitor who was the first ones to encounter the Tyranid, and he was named Kurzman, and he kept finding these planets that were completely decimated after getting like these panicked calls from them, and he ended up actually catching up to the first Tyranid fleet.
Because they were like 3 planets deep.
Yeah, pretty much. And he watched them fight and absorb and eat the planet, and he was like, wait a second, why don't we just starve this thing out? And he managed to get ahead of it, and he virus bombed like the first like 2 planets ahead of them, and ultimately they starved the Tyranid out, and that was one of the first Leviathan, or at least one of the first tendrils of the Tyranids that ultimately showed up.
Because that was when they were able to also see that they were being controlled by like what would be later known as the hive mind.
Yeah, pretty much. Like they figured out that if you break the fleet or starve the fleet, all the little tendril things will die out, and they will ultimately become useless.
Yeah, they actually become feral.
Yeah,
They'll attack their own hive.
yeah, pretty much.
Because they don't have anything really
They did
driving them.
technically face the Tyranids in the Horus Heresy because they found a group of defective gene stealers on a specific planet. But
Oh, that's right. Because that was when the Iron War... Was it the Iron
it was
War?
Blood Angels who
Was
fought
it Blood
them.
Angel? No,
Yeah.
not fought. One of the legions was messing with more of their genes.
No, they fought them. They fought them on a specific moon. I just don't remember what the moon's called because it's been too long. I don't know if it's still considered canon or not. That's the thing. But they found it. They fought them, and they called them gene stealers because they noticed that they had the ability to take genetic makeup from certain things to improve themselves. So, yeah. Then I'm not 100% sure when the Tau showed up within the universe. But years later, they started basically butting heads with this group of technologically advanced blue-skinned aliens called the Tau, and they are very focused on this concept they have called the greater good.
They're space communists.
Basically.
Basically, yeah. Because they go on. They go to each planet in peace, going, hey, this is our cause for the greater good.
Join us or join us by force.
Yes and no. The Tau were kind of pushovers at first, but then
Then they
I think
realized
it was
they
like
needed to
Crusade
expand.
War, and then that once they started expanding,
They just
dying
came
off
across.
more.
They just came across
Because
the
they
rest
can't-
of the galaxy. They were
They
just like,
can't fight. They just point and shoot.
They
They can't
found-
fight the great melee combat.
No, they found orcs, they found Nurgle, they found all of Chaos. I think it was Khorne that they discovered first. I can't remember, but
Yeah.
yeah, they
So that's
just
when they
decided the
discovered they
galaxy
could
was too
slaughter.
big for them not to expand by force. So then they started really becoming a hegemony, which is when it's multiple species, but their species is on top. And they might be controlled by worms. I think we talked about that. But I don't think there's any more like major conflicts or anything we need to discuss.
No, because just right now, all of the different races are just starting to try and take
They're-
over the galaxy, thrive in the galaxy, because you have your Necrons fighting the Imperium. You have the Mechanicum kind of splitting off into the Dark Mechanicum that had followed Horus.
That's right.
Because the Fabricator General had taken them, and they were kind of rebuilding. So it was just all different. There's war everywhere, but
Right.
no really specific
Right.
happening war now.
Which is why it's such a fun game to play, because you get to act out that crap.
Exactly. Well, the tabletop, playing on that, different games to bring in all kinds of wars. Definitely books tying in the lore that continues everything. Because from this moment on, we'll be able to explain off. So from this moment on, since we just finished up the timeline, what we're going to be kind of aiming for is going off on different, like, take all the different legions of Space Marines, for example. We'll go all over the different Primarchs, like the Eldar, the Path of the Warrior, all kinds of different stuff that deals with them.
Oh yeah,
So
we
now
barely
we'll be able
touched
to
the service.
Exactly. This is just the introduction of when we're talking about the current time of the 41st millennium of the Warhammer 40K
Yeah, we could point you back to this.
Exactly, because a lot of it will tie into this. So these last few episodes have just been a basic introduction of, hey, in future what we're talking about, when we bring this up, you at least have a general knowledge of, okay, this is when this was going on, or this was when it started, this is why, etc., etc. So now we will actually be able to delve into basically everything.
The real lore. The meat.
The meat of the bone!
The-
That is this glorious battle. And I can't wait to talk about my boys! My orcs!
Yeah, maybe we should talk about the orcs next. Guys.
Warboss Toon Smasher!
Warboss.
You guys dragged me off my own planet for this!
That's what I think about your orc.
So follow us and like, subscribe, do what it is down there.
Yeah, whatever.
Email us any questions or any content that you'd like us to do at hammeringthepoint@gmail.com.
And thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much. And continue. We hope you enjoy what we have released so far and look forward to what comes after. This has been Hammering the Point.
Goodbye. Signing off.